You don't expect a knock at your front door at 4:03 a.m. unless something's wrong. Dead wrong. That kind of sound, fist against wood, hard and rapid, usually means someone's desperate or dangerous. And when I opened the blinds just enough to peek out, I saw the latter. A woman, mid-50s, blonde bob haircut, clipboard in one hand, flashlight in the other, wearing what looked like a windbreaker with HOA inspector patched on the chest. Except my HOA doesn't do 4 a.m. surprise visits. Not unless there's a fire. And even then, they wouldn't send someone with that look in their eyes, like they were ready to fight. Stick around. What happened next got the cops involved, the entire neighborhood talking, and reminded me exactly why staying calm under pressure still pays off, even years after I left the Navy SEALs. Hit that like button and subscribe. You won't believe where this goes. I stepped away from the window, silently pulled on a shirt, and made my way to the door. No rush. I've had my fair share of unexpected knocks in places where answering wrong meant never answering again. But this was home. And whoever she was, she picked the wrong guy to surprise. She knocked again, louder this time. "Mr. Reynolds, open up now! HOA inspection. Your backyard is in violation." Violation? Backyard? At 4 in the damn morning? I flicked on the porch light and slowly opened the door. Not all the way, just enough to see her clearly and keep my body behind the frame. "Ma'am," I said, calm as ever, "do you realize it's 4 in the morning?" She didn't blink, didn't apologize. "You're obstructing an official inspection," she snapped. "I've received multiple complaints about safety hazards on your property, and if you don't comply, I'll be forced to escalate." Her badge, if you could call it that, was stitched onto her jacket. No HOA logo, no identification number. Just the words Neighborhood Compliance Officer. I'd never seen her before in my life. "I'm not letting anyone onto my property without a written notice," I said flatly, "and not in the middle of the night." "Are you refusing inspection?" "I'm refusing trespass," I said. That's when she stepped closer, just enough for the edge of her clipboard to tap the door. "People like you think the rules don't apply just because you have a military flag out front. But this isn't a war zone. It's a community, and I enforce the rules here." I didn't say a word. I just looked at her, and I could tell it unnerved her. I've learned that silence is power, especially when someone expects you to argue. She wanted a fight. I wasn't giving it to her. Not yet. Behind her, the street was quiet. No one else around. Just a silver Prius parked at the corner with its lights off. Probably hers. "You need to leave," I said steady. "Now!" She looked me dead in the eye. "You'll regret this." And then she turned, slowly, like she wanted to be dramatic, and walked down my driveway. Not far, just to the gate leading to my backyard. I watched her unlatch it. I was halfway through stepping outside when she slipped through and disappeared into the dark, onto my land. That was it. Years of training kicked in like a switch. I locked the front door behind me, circled around through the garage, and caught sight of her near my tool shed. She had a phone in one hand now, aiming it toward the pile of lumber I'd been using to rebuild the fence. "Unsafe conditions," she muttered, filming. That's when I spoke up, louder this time. "You're trespassing. Leave immediately." She spun around, startled, but not scared. That made me even more cautious. Something about her confidence felt off. She was too sure I wouldn't stop her. "What are you hiding?" she hissed. "What don't you want the HOA to see?" At that point, I knew two things. One, she wasn't from the HOA. Two, she really didn't know who she was dealing with. She was standing barely 6 feet from me now, light from her phone bouncing off my toolshed wall. Her tone, her posture, her entire presence radiated that unmistakable energy. The kind of person who thrives on confrontation, who builds their identity around being in charge even when they aren't. "I'm going to document everything," she said, panning her phone across my yard like she was filming an exposé. "Unsafe conditions, unauthorized materials, structural violations. This is a legal matter now." I didn't move, didn't even breathe loud, but my hands were steady at my sides, relaxed, loose. Not because I wasn't angry, but because I knew exactly how fast things could escalate when someone like her thought they were untouchable. "What's your name?" I asked. She paused just for a split second. "Excuse me? You said you're an inspector. I'm asking your name, full name, title, department. I don't have to give you anything, she barked. I'm working with the HOA. That's all you need to know. That's not how the HOA works. She took a step forward. Are you threatening me? Not even close. My voice was level, low, firm, not aggressive, just enough to cut through the cold night air and remind her this wasn't a game. See, what she didn't know, what people like her never consider, is that some of us have spent entire lifetimes navigating far worse than a suburban showdown. I've been in villages where you couldn't trust anyone, in rooms where a single twitch meant life or death. And this was just noise. Annoying, illegal noise. But I wasn't about to let it slide. You're on private property, I said. You've ignored 2 warnings. You're impersonating a compliance officer, and you've made contact without proper documentation. I need you to leave, right now. You don't get to make demands. I do when it's my land. She stiffened. The axe started to crack a little, and then she tried to pivot. I've had reports of you building without a permit. Neighbors said you've been hiding construction. Someone said they saw a weapon on your porch. That last part, that was bait. You lying now? I asked. She blinked. What? Or are you just inventing things to justify trespassing? She stared at me for a second, a long, measuring pause. I could see the wheels turning behind her eyes. This wasn't just a nosy neighbor. She was testing how far she could push, how far she could provoke, and she was losing her grip. I pulled my phone from my back pocket, tapped it once, and held it up so she could see the recording indicator. You're being filmed now. Time, location, audio, everything. Don't you dare, she snapped, stepping closer. You just walked through my gate. You're on my land. I have every right to record. You're a menace, a threat to this neighborhood. You live here like the rules don't apply. She was shouting now, loud enough for the houses nearby to hear. A light flicked on across the street. Good. You know what I think? I said. You're not just pretending to be HOA. You're obsessed. This is your power trip. You probably patrol this street every night hoping someone leaves a trash bin crooked so you can call it in. That's slander. No, that's a pattern. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one you've harassed. You'll regret this. I know people. Real people. You'll be out of this neighborhood in a week. I took a step closer, just enough to bring my voice within her space. You have 5 seconds to get off my property before I call the real HOA, the sheriff, and every neighbor I can wake up. She stood there frozen. Then she snorted. Go ahead. I raised my phone. She flinched, then turned and stormed out the gate, muttering curses under her breath. I waited until she was down the driveway before I moved again. And that's when I saw it. The silver Prius she'd parked was already rolling down the street. But here's the thing. She wasn't the driver, which meant someone else had been with her the whole time. Watching. That Prius gliding down the street with its lights still off. It told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't some random Karen gone rogue with a clipboard and a superiority complex. She wasn't alone. And now whoever had been sitting in that car, watching, waiting, was pulling away before things got too hot. I walked back to my front porch, phone still recording, and scanned the street. The car was gone, just taillights turning the corner. No plates I could catch in the dark. Too far. But I'd seen enough of the outline. That wasn't the first time I'd spotted that Prius driving slowly through the neighborhood. Windows tinted, always lingering too long near the intersections. It wasn't a coincidence. This was planned. I called my neighbor Mike, 3 houses down. Ex-cop, retired 5 years ago, but still sharp. We'd done a few fence repairs together the past summer. Good guy. Trusted. He answered on the second ring. Yeah? Hey, sorry for the hour. I had someone on my property, woman claiming she was HOA, filmed my yard, got into the back, had a driver waiting for her. Silence for a beat. Seriously? Dead serious. I'm coming. 5 minutes later, Mike showed up in a hoodie and cargo pants, flashlight in hand, eyes wide awake. I showed him the footage, her face, her voice, the way she entered. The moment she saw I wasn't going to budge. That's not anyone on the HOA board, he said. I've met them all, and they don't do unannounced inspections. especially not at 4 in the damn morning. You ever seen her around? He shook his head. Not that I can recall, but I'll ask around. We made a quick lap around my property. I checked everything before bed, and nothing looked disturbed now. But her phone had scanned everything. The shed, the lumber, even the BBQ setup near the fence. And for what? This wasn't just some obsession with property codes. She was looking for something. Fishing for violations. Maybe even trying to manufacture an excuse for legal trouble. Some HOAs are toxic like that. Petty control games dressed up as community standards. But this felt different, more personal. Mike agreed. That was a move, coordinated. The driver circling says they didn't want to be seen. And her tone? That wasn't a first offense. She's done this before. Next step was clear. Real HOA contact. I pulled up the contact info from my last dues notice and called the president, Linda Walsh. It was almost 5:01 a.m. now, and I expected voicemail. But she picked up. Hello? Groggy, confused. Mrs. Walsh, sorry for the time. I need to report someone claiming to be with the HOA. She came onto my property without notice and refused to leave. I gave her the details. The video, the Prius, and then came the bombshell. I think I know who you're talking about, Linda said. That sounds like Carol Miller. She lives over on Red Fern. She's not with us. She used to be on the landscaping committee years ago, but she was removed. Caused a lot of issues. We asked her not to contact homeowners directly anymore. Why was she removed? She was overzealous, obsessive. She'd measure grass height with a ruler. Once tried to fine a family for hanging a kid's towel over a deck rail. Eventually, we had to ban her from all committee activity. And now she's back, breaking into yards at 4 a.m. Linda was silent for a second. I'm calling an emergency meeting this afternoon. Send me the footage. I'll notify our legal advisor. I hung up. Mike exhaled hard and shook his head. Carol, of course. You know her? Only by reputation. But yeah, she's nuts. Thinks she's still in charge of everything. There's a story about her showing up at a neighbor's Halloween party with a tape measure, claiming their decorations were out of HOA spec. I didn't laugh. I wasn't there yet. She'd been on my property, alone at first, then backed up by someone in a car. And if she was willing to do that to me, someone she didn't know was ex-military, what had she done to others? What if she targeted families? Elderly neighbors? We agreed to check in with a few folks later that morning. Quietly for now. No drama, no alarm, just gather stories, patterns, timelines. Because something told me Carol wasn't done, and next time she might not come with a clipboard. The sun was creeping up when I poured my first cup of coffee. I hadn't slept. My mind was too busy piecing it all together. Carol Miller, former HOA committee member turned self-appointed enforcer, had crossed a line, and I wasn't about to let her keep walking. I went through the footage again, frame by frame. Her face, her words, the Prius pulling away. Every detail was clearer in the early morning light. I clipped the cleanest segments and labeled them with timestamps. Evidence. Solid. Undeniable. By 8:15 a.m., I was out the door and walking the block. I didn't want to stir up drama, but I needed to know if this was a one-off or a pattern. I started with the Carters across the street. Retired, quiet, never involved in much. When I asked if they'd had any recent trouble, their eyes widened. Actually, yes, Mrs. Carter said. About 2 weeks ago, a woman knocked on our door just before sunrise, said our garden gnome violated height regulations. She didn't identify herself, just said she was there on behalf of the neighborhood. I showed her the video still. Was it her? She nodded instantly. Yes, that's her. Next stop, the young couple next door, had a toddler and a rescue dog. We came home last week and found a notice on our door, the husband said. Handwritten, no official letterhead, said our garbage cans were an eyesore. We thought it was some bored teenager. They hadn't reported it. Most people don't. You get a weird note, you shake your head and move on. But that's what Carol was counting on. Fear, annoyance, silence. She'd done this more than once, more than twice. By 10:01 a.m., I had statements from 5 households. One neighbor even admitted they saw her taking pictures of someone's car and poking around their front porch. At night. It was time. I forwarded everything, videos, stills, witness notes, to Linda Walsh at the HOA. She replied within minutes. The emergency meeting was moved up. 11 a.m., community center, closed session. I suited up, not like for combat, but professionally. Clean shirt, pressed pants, everything in place. I wasn't going in angry. I was going in prepared. When I arrived, Linda was already there, flanked by 2 other board members. I walked them through the timeline. They watched the footage, reviewed the statements. And when I was done, Linda leaned back and let out a low, steady breath. She's gone too far. What can you do? I asked. We're drafting a cease and desist right now. We'll involve our legal rep. If she contacts another homeowner, steps onto another property, even so much as drops off another note, she'll be reported to the sheriff. And then I asked the real question. Do you know who the driver was? They looked at each other. No one answered at first. Finally, one of the board members, Roger, I think, spoke up. Carol's son, Matthew, he lives with her, keeps to himself. Rumor is he's not well. Social anxiety, maybe more. Does he have a record? Not that we know of. Still, it's troubling, Linda added. They've both been increasingly aggressive. We should have handled this sooner. I nodded. They gave me a printed copy of the cease and desist letter and asked if I'd be willing to hand-deliver a copy of the footage and statements to the sheriff's substation, just to have it on record. I agreed. At 1:15 p.m., I walked into the precinct with everything in hand. The deputy at the desk, a stocky guy with tired eyes, took one look at the file and raised an eyebrow. Carol Miller again? You've heard of her? Oh yeah, he said. She's called us twice in the past month. Once to report a kid playing basketball too loud. Another time to complain about a car parked too red. Her words, not mine. He took the file and assured me it would be logged. That was enough for now. I wasn't out for revenge. I just wanted her out of my life. But that night, just after 8 p.m., I got a knock on the door. This time it was Mike, holding up his phone. You're not gonna believe this. He handed it to me. It was a screenshot. A Facebook post in the neighborhood group. Carol Miller. If certain neighbors think they can intimidate me with fake accusations and edited footage, they're wrong. I know what I saw. I know what I'm doing. And I won't stop until our streets are clean. I scrolled. Comments were blowing up. Some supported her, some ripped into her. One neighbor posted a blurry night photo of her car parked in front of their house. And someone else had written, she knocked on our door at 2 a.m. last week, said she was investigating light pollution. We don't even have porch lights. It wasn't over. Not yet. By the next morning, Carol's name was on every tongue in the neighborhood. Front lawns became whisper circles. Driveways turned into impromptu town halls. People weren't just curious anymore. They were fed up. Some shared stories they'd kept to themselves for months. An elderly couple 2 blocks over said she once followed their granddaughter down the street, accusing her of suspicious pacing. A single dad admitted she left printed citations on his windshield for non-regulation garden lighting. What began as a nuisance was now an infestation. But the post she made, where she called my footage fake, was the final match in the gasoline. Because I don't bluff. I don't fake. And I sure as hell don't back down when someone trespasses on my property in the middle of the night, lies about their authority, and then tries to slander me online. I uploaded the unedited security footage, not just of her trespassing, but a side-by-side comparison of timestamps, audio, my original gate camera feed, and her interaction with me. It went viral in our local group within an hour. Comments flooded in, dozens of residents tagging each other, sharing stories, voicing anger. Then came a comment from someone who hadn't said a word all year. Matthew Miller. Just one sentence. She doesn't listen to me either. That hit like a gut punch. I clicked on his profile. Not much there. Just a few blurry photos of model trains, one picture of a cat. No public posts. But I knew right then he was the one in the Prius, the silent observer, the one who watched from the car while she went door to door. And maybe, just maybe, he'd finally had enough too. That afternoon, I got a call from Linda Walsh. She's been officially removed from all neighborhood meetings, communications, and is barred from interacting with HOA matters, period, she said. Sheriff's office just served her a formal notice. Trespassing, impersonation, and civil harassment. It's all on file now. What about the group post? I asked. She deleted it an hour ago. Probably realized she can't bluff her way out anymore. It felt like a win. Not because she was punished, but because it was done. The noise stopped. The control games ended. But the real win came 2 days later. I was out front restaining the fence when a car rolled up slow. The silver Prius. It stopped at the curb. The window rolled down. Matthew, slouched pale, looked like he hadn't slept in years. He didn't get out. He just looked at me and said, "Thanks." I nodded. "She's not coming back," he added. "We're moving next month." I didn't ask why, didn't press. He drove off after that, quiet, no scene, and that was it. Since then, the neighborhood's been calm. No 4 a.m. knocks, no fake violations, no backyard intrusions, just normal things. Lawns being mowed, kids riding scooters, porch lights flicking on at sunset. Peace. And me? I still keep the cameras running. Old habits die hard. But I sleep better now. So here's what I'll leave you with. If someone shows up on your property uninvited, don't let them bluff you. Know your rights. Trust your instincts. And remember, sometimes the loudest people are the ones with the weakest ground to stand on, especially when they knock on the wrong door, at the wrong time, and meet the wrong man.